Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first ever full length audio edition of the Unsung Heroes. My name is Trey Stire. Thank you for joining me today, and we will have you covered on the top privateers and non factory racers from Anaheim 1 Saturday night, of course, the beginning of a brand new Monster Energy AMA Supercross season from the famed Angel Stadium in Anaheim, and we will take you through all of the top privateers. My name is Trey Stire. Thank you for listening. You can find this along with the Stire Sound on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you want to listen along. Thank you for tuning in. If you are a little bit unfamiliar with my series, The Unsung Heroes, I started writing the series in June 2023 to give privateer and non-factory racers a spotlight. If you score points in the AMA Pro Motocross Series, if you qualify for the main event in Supercross and in the SMX playoffs, you get some coverage. This year, I decided to go ahead and do an audio version of The Unsung Heroes along with the written version. I know some people prefer to read, some people prefer to listen, and this could give you the best of both worlds. I'm going to try to have 31 interviews in 31 races, 31 rounds, try to bring you a bunch of different voices to hear from some of the privateer racers, maybe some mechanics, team owners. We'll see what happens, but I plan on having an interview every week if I can in the Unsung Heroes in the audio version. But this is mainly for people who might not want to read. I know some of my articles are very jam packed with information and can take a while to get through. So now we have options. I would love for you to do both, but now you have the possibility to listen instead of reading. And without further ado, I have an interview this week. One of the 250 West privateers got to chat with me on Monday evening. We talked about his performance over the weekend, his new motorcycle, learning the ins and outs of it. And without further ado, we're just going to hop right into the interview, folks. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Thanks for listening. The Unsung Heroes of Anaheim 1 2026. Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Welcome once again to the first full length audio edition of the Unsung Heroes. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, we want to do this so you can read, so you can listen, and for the listeners and readers, we're going to try to have 31 interviews in 31 weeks, and we're starting off at the Anaheim 1 edition. This man is a California boy from Fremont, and he got to realize a dream the other night, qualifying for his first Anaheim 1 main event, and I believe the sixth main event of his career. He's been grinding for the last few years, runs his own effort, puts things together, and seemed like he was a little bit of a last minute entry, but he put his number 388 Triumph into the field from Relentless Racing. Please welcome Brandon Ray to the Unsung Heroes. Brandon, first of all, congratulations on qualifying for the main event at Anaheim 1. I'm sure you're over the moon right now.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much. It does feel good. It's like a relief, off my back. But at the same time, it's like something that I should be doing. So I want to make it happen every weekend.
My first question for you here, getting into the weekend, of course, you're in the field, the only Triumph actually in the field, and you put it in the show with the factory team focusing on the East Coast. But it was a very solid day for you, top 25 in qualifying. Then you rode it in straight through the heat race. Take me through your day a little bit from qualifying, your heat race, your main event, and tell me about what the feeling's like to qualify for Anaheim 1.
Yeah, the feelings throughout the day, they were my expectations I set were very low, just despite the past few months that I've had and everything kind of going on and it being so last second for me to race Anaheim 1. They were super low. So from the very first time I went on the track, I was impressing myself every time, every lap I did after every qualifier. And I came off from the qualifier and it said I think it was 21st after the first one. And I was like, dang, good, that's really good. And then got knocked down one in the second qualifier, which wasn't no big deal. I was still 22nd. So leading into the night show, like the vibes were just, they were high, and my confidence was just getting better. And then heat race, I came out of the first corner, and I was a little shuffled back. I looked on the results or whatever, and they said I came out of the first corner in 17th, and made passes super quick, and had a few people that I latched onto to help me get through the pack, like Ryder DiFrancesco was one. Came around and they said I was in 10th, and then made the move on Camprisi, I think that's how you pronounce his name, for 9th. And I seen the guys behind me, and I kind of just, like you said, rode it in. And man, when I went over the finish line, it was like I was so excited. I was pumped, and it was awesome. I mean, my girlfriend was like almost in tears after, because I know she didn't think I was gonna do that. I didn't think I was gonna do that. It was sweet, you know. It was a good time. And then the main event came around and came out, and came out of the start like not that bad, and I ran with the guys like in like I think I was in like the 10th through 15th pack, and I was holding my own. Like these guys, like they didn't seem like they're way like much faster than me. I was holding my own, like showing them wheels in the corners, and just I hit that wall, you know, where my stamina was lacking, and fell back, unfortunately. And I just wish I could have stayed up there, and that's what I'm gonna work on during the week, is just to stay up there. But overall, a great day.
I'm sure you guys had to be stoked, and it seemed like there was a good bit of people in your pits all day and even cheering for you. I know when you pulled off the track, I think you gave the bike a couple revs, and it seemed like all those people in the lower section were really letting you hear it and giving you a round of applause. But of course, the last couple years you've been putting together your own effort, but you've been on a Honda the last couple years. Then you showed up to the Huntington Beach Arena Cross race. You're on a Triumph 450. Talk a little bit about switching brands, why you decided to go to the Triumph route, and maybe there's going to be some contingency money coming your way. I mean, you were the only Triumph out there, and you put her in the show.
Yeah, the decision, it was kind of a hard decision, because I have a bunch of like Honda stuff, you know, left over from, you know, my past few years. I got on a Honda in, you know, early 2023, rode it throughout 2023, and then got hurt, didn't race 24. Then last year it was back on a Honda, and I just felt like the whole last year, man, I just wasn't feeling good, like on the bike. I don't know if it was bike setup or something. I just didn't feel good, you know. And I hooked up with Whiskey Throttle, and they sent me out to West Virginia to actually try their new Triumph that they came out with. I think it was the C model. It was like an off-road, you know, the off-road. And from the first time I hopped on the bike, I was like, dude, I really love this bike. Like, this bike feels super good. And you know, I was just riding up in the woods out in West Virginia, and came home, and they had a 450 that they let me ride, that I ended up racing Huntington Beach Arena Cross on. And then I got into the 250, and that's where everything like really was starting to click. I'm like, dude, okay, this is the bike I want to race. This is it. And sold the Hondas. Well, I sold 2 Hondas and had to pay some people back to help me out and whatnot, and had to take care of some bills and stuff like that. And had another Honda that I sold, that actually something happened, but I lost the money from that, and put me in like a really tricky spot. But SoCal Triumph came through, and my old sponsor Brad Kent came through to help me actually get the bike, and that's how I was able to race on the Triumph.
Man, you were up in my neck of the woods, West Virginia, testing the thing out. It's awesome to hear the Triumph story, and like I mentioned, I mean, it's still a very new manufacturer, and with the factory team focusing on East Coast, it seems like that you are the only guy out there. But you talk about Whiskey Throttle, and I know those guys have been sponsoring you, supporting you the last couple years, giving you some light. I don't know the Whiskey Throttle folks super well, but I have talked to Jeff Beaver a couple times. Very nice guy, fun to talk to, but talk a little bit about Whiskey Throttle as well. I know they've helped you not just sponsorships and decals on the bike, but I remember, I feel like an arena cross round a couple years ago, they were sending you around to interview people. I think you interviewed Cody Groves or something with an apple, if I remember correctly. But talk a little bit about the Whiskey Throttle folks helping you out and giving you a little bit of support from their page as well.
Yeah, actually, Jeff Bieber, he's from my neck of the woods. He's from the Bay Area, and that's where I'm from. And we just got hooked up. I think it was just over social media, and we talked about being from the same place and whatnot. And they needed they were having me be like their test rider, for their media shootouts, which was something cool. I've never done that before. So being able to ride the bikes like back to back, like different brands, like it's been like a really cool experience. They let me ride actually one of my Hondas from last year was one of their Honda media bikes that they were just like, here, use it at your own disposal, and ended up racing on it a bunch of rounds. And my practice bike put a lot of hours on it. So it's just cool that they give me the opportunity to ride a bike that I can put as much time as I want on it, and obviously they give me the exposure when they can, when they're doing their media stuff, because they're a growing media outlet. So it's cool to get out there and get in people's eyes, wherever you're watching from. So it's cool. It's cool to be linked up with them for sure.
I know you've been cutting your teeth in arena cross these last few years. Of course, you've been running a lot of supercross and pro motocross as well, but seems like you were really a 5 to 10 level guy, sometimes higher in arena cross, whether you were on the Honda or the Triumph when you raced at Huntington Beach. But arena cross, it seems like the last couple years has started to have a resurgence a little bit. I feel like looking back now, it was that Prescott Valley round when Oakland Supercross was canceled because of all the rain and flooding that was going on, and so many privateers went there. I feel like that was kind of the moment where arena cross really started to gain momentum and get some traction once again. But you were out there being a regular. How much did racing some of those tighter venues and battling with some of those guys like Kyle Peters and Ryan Brees, Austin Politelli, how much did it sharpen your skills, and what areas do you think you benefited from the most when you competed in arena cross?
It's definitely like racecraft and intensity. You gotta learn how to handle your emotions too. Is another thing you can learn in arena cross, because those can get overwhelmed pretty quick. But I mean, arena cross is sick. I hope it gets back up to what it was before. And I think that that arena cross has a lot. They have a lot more they can grow to. Because I remember when arena cross was packed, like the tracks were super sick, and I watched YouTube videos of the old Amsoil days all the time. And it's something that is different than Supercross, and is very similar to Supercross. And just riding with those guys like Kyle Peters, like you said, and the other guys, like they've been there. They've been really good riders in Supercross. So it's cool just being around them and learning from them, and seeing what they do and how they handle situations, and their bike control and everything like that. So yeah, I've learned a lot racing arena cross, and it's cool to get a nice little paycheck too, because arena cross, you can make a little, pretty good money if you're in the top 5. So that was another big incentive of me going out there and doing it.
One last question here for you before we wrap up. I know that you have a baby on the way. You are going to be a first time father, and I'm sure you're pretty excited, also maybe a little nervous, but talk to me a little
Whew.
bit about finding out that you are going to be a father, and then, your outlook right now. I don't know how far things are along, but just take me through finding that out, and how excited are you to become a first time dad?
Oh man, the story about how I found out is probably a story for a different day. But she told me, and I'm excited about it now. At first, like I was super scared and super nervous, and didn't know like how I was gonna make ends meet, because I've always been able to make ends meet for me. Like for me being able to race and living that struggle bus, living out of my van, traveling to the outdoors. And it hit me that like I'm not gonna be able to do that no more, because I want to have my daughter have a good life, and my girlfriend. And I'm excited about it now. She's due on the 25th, so I think that's like what, 2 weeks, even if that. So she can literally come at any time, and just hope it's not on a Saturday night. That would be a really stressful situation to deal with. But I'm glad. I mean, I'm stoked, and honestly, it helps me out during the days that I'm working out alone or on my bicycle rides alone, because I'm like, okay, like I'm not doing it for just me now. Like I want to have a good life for my family that I'm starting. So yeah, it's definitely a push in my daily life now.
That's awesome to hear, and congratulations to you and your family. Before we wrap up, I will say give Brandon a follow. He is at b.ray_388 on Instagram, so give him a follow and check out his career, what he's up to, and see what he's going to be able to accomplish the last few 250 West Coast rounds. Any other sponsors you'd like to shout out real quick before we conclude today's interview?
I mean, dude, all my sponsors. I have a pretty good list of people that help me out, and I can go off and read them. My obviously start first. Brad Kent, TBDMX, HJC Helmets, O'Neill, Whiskey Throttle Media, AHM Suspension, Dunlop, Acherbys, HGS, Jan Primo, SoCal Triumph, CZ Clean and CZ Air, Electro and Co, ASV, ODI, Works Connection, EVS, Dirt Tricks, Guts, and Vinted MX. Those guys are just, among many other people who helped me out. A lot of just friends and family help me out and support me, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you for the time once again, man. This has been Brandon Ray on the Unsung Heroes. Best of luck at San Diego and throughout the rest of the 250 West season. Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Brandon Ray on the Stire Sound. Once again, we thank B Ray for his time on the show, and you can catch the number 388 Triumph machine at Snapdragon Stadium this weekend in San Diego.
Now moving on to the rest of the 250 class, starting with the highest finishing privateer non-factory racer, and that, of course, was Maximus Voland in 7th place. No surprise that Voland was the top privateer racer on the evening. And really, all weekend, Maximus looked good. He looked very comfortable out there from my point of view. And on Friday, he hopped in right behind Hayden Deegan, following all of his lines. And that was one of the biggest reasons it took Hayden Deegan so long to pass Voland. Voland knew where he was going, knew the lines he was taking. And Voland, 7th place, a big improvement from his opening round last year when he finished 21st after a DNF. So great start to the year for Max, and I expect to see him back up on the podium at some point this year. He's looking really solid aboard that Club MX machine. The Club MX crew, a bit of a tumultuous off-season. They lost FXR as their primary sponsor, lost Muck-Off as their primary sponsor, but the McGinley Clinic Fly Racing among the companies stepping up to help with them. And one of their newest members, 8th place, matching his career best, Hunter Yoder. Great run from Hunter. Led a couple laps in his heat race, which was awesome to see. And a really solid main event. I actually got to talk to Hunter a little bit on Sunday evening, and he told me that that's something he's been working on a lot at the Club MX facility. He said leading was awesome. It's one of the best feelings ever and pretty indescribable. We've been putting a lot of emphasis on first laps and starts. It was nice to nail it in both races. He also said, in the main event, I struggled during the last half, just lost a bit of focus and the toe from the guys in front, but I gave it my all. Of course, the weekend started out pretty bad for Hunter Yoder on Tuesday, training at Club MX, ended up messing up a couple ligaments in his knee, wasn't sure 100% if he would race or not, but then he gets a contract extension before he even lines up for a race for the Club MX team, runs through the not only the 2026 season, but also the 2027 season. So congratulations to Hunter. I talked to him about that as well. He said, as some people know, I showed up to club on a 5-month deal, pretty much a supercross only deal, with no salary, basically just a chance to prove myself. I never doubted I could earn the next contract, but I also didn't think it was going to be for 2 years and before we ever got to the race. The team makes me feel right at home, and they will do anything to make us more comfortable and faster on the track. Between the team and riding with my teammates every day, I've gained so much confidence in myself and my riding ability. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if we see Hunter continue building on his success for the rest of the year and potentially get up and score a top 5, maybe keep extending that career best There were two other privateers in the top 10. AEO Power Sports KTM's Avery Long in ninth. Very quiet night. I didn't notice him a whole lot, but hey, man, ninth place. That beats his best career Supercross finish, which was a 12th, I believe, at A1 last year. So great start to the year for the sophomore. And shout out to Dylan Schwartz. Summer Schwartz starting already. Toyota Redlands, Bar-X Yamaha. He was their best guy this weekend and was really a top 10 guy all day. 250B qualifying session was very entertaining to watch. Not quite as good as 450A, but it was definitely up there for sure because Dylan Schwartz and the 12th place finisher, Robbie Wageman, they were just trading lap times back and forth, man. Schwartz would go, put a heater down, go to the top of the board. Then Wageman would answer. Schwartz would regroup, come back for another lap. He would go back to the top. Then Wageman would go back to the top. It was a really fun cat and mouse game, and they were only a couple hundredths from each other, I believe, by the end of qualifying. Speaking of Robbie Wageman, he is aboard the Heartbeat Hot Sauce Nano Extreme Yamaha powered by Tylube. The Team Solitaire boys trying to compete with Ducati for the longest official team name, but Robbie had a good race. For Dylan and Robbie, two guys who missed a lot of last year in Supercross due to injuries. Dylan missed all of 2024 as well with a wrist injury. So awesome to see them back. And for Dylan, it was his first top 10 indoors since his rookie season in 2021. I would have never guessed that. I thought for sure he would have had a top 10 finish when he competed for the HEP, PMG, Progressive X Star, whatever you want to call that team, the main Suzuki organization in 2023. Now moving on a little bit through the rest of the field. 11th place, Carson Mumford. Not bad for his debut with AEO Power Sports KTM. His debut on a steel frame machine after so many years with Honda and one on Suzuki and Kawasaki in between there. Carson was keeping up with Maximus Voland and Cameron McAdoo in his heat race. He was running very well, but in the main event, not a great start. I think he crossed the first lap line in 16th place or so, worked back up to 11th. So a decent start, decent foundation, building blocks for Carson. I just mentioned Robbie Wageman, of course, P12. Not a bad start to the year for Robbie. One of two Team Solitaire guys in the entry list in the night show, but he was the only one to make the main event. 13th place, one of the friendliest guys in the pits, a guy I always enjoy talking to, and somebody also coming back after breaking a vertebrae in his back last year at Seattle. Josh Varese is back. He got an opportunity a little late, but an opportunity nonetheless with the Grindstone Friesen Group Kawasaki team. Colin Walsh, who was really the team leader for that organization for several years, ended up taking a seat with KTM Australia's factory team. So now Varese a part of the team, and for Josh, is quite the opposite scenario as Carson Mumford. Josh, since turning pro for the 2020 outdoor season, has competed exclusively on a steel frame bike, whether it was a KTM, a Husqvarna, a Gas, of course, spent some time with AEO, filled in for Rockstar Husky a little bit at the end of 21. Now Josh has an aluminum frame and a Kawasaki, and Josh is one of the first people I talked to this weekend in the pits on Friday morning. He told me that the switch to Kawasaki, it was still new to him. He was still learning things, but he said he felt like it was maybe the refresh that his career needed, and 13th is a really solid result to start. He's still learning everything, and usually once he's going, he's one of the most steady privateers in the sport. I know he hasn't quite matched some of the high results he had early in his career the last couple years, but he's still been a steady main event guy. 14th and 15th, two more of the Bar-X Yamaha teammates. 14th, Parker Ross. Of course, Parker qualified for the playoffs last year. He was running near the top 10, but he said he started to get it tight a little bit, probably from the nerves. 15th for Lux Turner. Lux was looking very good and winning rounds like crazy in the Australian Supercross Championship. Unfortunately, fractured his wrist in a wild ride in qualifying at the AUS-X Open. 15th for Lux. He was a little disappointed by the result, but he still left healthy, left with 7 points under his belt. So realistically, not too bad considering he's only been back on the bike for a little over a month or so. 16th place, Anthony Borden. Borden. I don't think anybody's quite sure to say his name or how to say his name, but he is back with a new team. He's with the Partzilla Blaster Power PRMX Kawasaki team. Antony in the offseason won the Paris Supercross 250 class. 16th place, not the best run for Antony, but he was also down very early in the main event. Hopefully, we will see him back closer toward the top 10, his usual range in weeks to come, but he's also still learning that bike and team. 17th place this weekend at Anaheim won. It was the Crockett Rocket. Crockett Myers back with the McGinley Clinic Privateer Support Program, and he's with B2 Metal Buildings supporting his program as well. It was a very hectic weekend for Crockett. Had some issues with the transponder in the first qualifying, a bit of a late build, getting that bike ready to go on Friday. Solid in his heat race, made up a lot of ground, but just one spot short of the main event. And then he took care of business in the LCQ, ran second through the entire race, and then progressed from last to 17th in the main event. Congrats to Crockett for making his first Anaheim 1 main event. And awesome to see a Suzuki out there. Hopefully, we can get Crockett on the show in a couple weeks so he can tell you a little bit more of the story behind his machine. 18th place, the first of two SLR Honda riders, two in a row actually. Matty Jorgensen from Denmark is back. It was his first Anaheim 1 main event qualification. And man, he put on a charge in the LCQ. Didn't have the best of starts, but he was flying through the field. His whoop speed looked very good for privateers. And Matty blew past Jack Chambers to get a transfer spot and then moved ahead of Camporisi. In the main event, he was trending toward the top 15 finish, but he got a little squirrely in one of the rhythm lanes, ended up going down, and he had a tough block wedged between his suspension and his radiator. And it was kind of funny watching Matty and one of the track officials, I'm not sure whether it was a flagger or just one of the guys standing at the track, but working together to try to get that blue tough block stuck out of his Honda machine. Right behind Matty, 19th place, his teammate Justin Rodbell. Congrats to Rodbell, his first Anaheim 1 main event. Not a great night or a result that jumps off the page, but he still qualified for Anaheim 1, and that's a great sign for Rodbell. 20th place, of course, we've mentioned him already. We've talked to him. Brandon Ray on the Triumph. Awesome to see him in the main event. A California boy. And the last man of the privateers to qualify for the main event in the 250 class, all the way from Italy, and in his first AMA Supercross main event since February of 2021, when I was a senior in high school, Lorenzo Camporisi. Welcome back to America. Lorenzo had one of the best kits of the weekend, in my opinion. Some white and purple neon, I think it was the Miami Vice looking kit. One Industries gear. I'm a big fan of the One Industries stuff, so I'm a little biased there. And then a green and purple Kawasaki, also a sucker for green and purple Cowies. Great look for Lorenzo, just outside of transferring in his heat race, but he got it done in the LCQ, survived a late lunge from Jack Chambers. Congrats, Lorenzo, on qualifying for the main event once again. And that wraps up all of the privateers who were in the 250 class main events. And now, of course, shifting to news and notes from outside the main event. But in the night show, I always like to give just a shout out to a few other guys who caught my eye as well. Jack Chambers, he was the first man on the outside of the main event. Jack took a really wild ride during qualifying. From my vantage point in the press box, it looked like he knocked himself out. He was carted off. He was awake by the time he was carted off, but still took a ride out of the stadium. Ended up lining up for the night show, and it just seemed like he wasn't himself. You could tell on his riding style, a guy who was around the 10 to 15 range in the 250 East Series last year. He's getting his doors blown off by Matty Jorgensen, and no disrespect to Lorenzo Camporisi, but I believe Lorenzo's best finish in a main event was 18th or so, and he is comfortably staying ahead of Jack Chambers. I think it's safe to say that Jack wasn't quite at 100%, and I'm not sure if I agree with the call from the Alpine Stars Mobile Medical Unit. I mean, I'm not a doctor by any means, but allowing him to race, I'm just not sure if I like that decision. And I know the medical unit has got a lot of scrutiny from this weekend with some other things like the Justin Barsha incident, but it just didn't seem like Jack was himself out there to me. Now looking at the Rocky Mountain ATV Privateer Payout Award winner. It was Hunter Schlosser who received the award. Hunter is back for Next Level Racing. He's been running some Indian Supercross during the offseason. He was right there, close to qualifying in his heat race, wasn't able to, and then he was involved in that first turn pileup in the LCQ. Speaking of Next Level Racing, Preston Massiangelo, the Canadian, he's a sophomore this year, and he's one of two riders who qualified for the night show, three that were entered in the evening to compete aboard a gas machine. If you're a fan of gas, there's still a couple guys out there representing the brand for you. Preston, I think, could take a step up this year. I look to see him in a few main events through the rest of the year. He was only a couple spots shy this weekend, but keep an eye out on the number 800, Caden Lewis, also in the night show aboard a gas. And the other man I mentioned, Charles Tollison, didn't quite make the cut for the night show, but was on a gas. And then, speaking of Canadians, the last couple guys I'll shout out before we move on to the 450 class, Blake Davies, who was in the field a few times last year trying to qualify for the main event on the MVP Racing Triumph machine. He is back, but aboard a Husqvarna this year. And Tyler Gibbs, another Canadian, was also trying to compete in the field. So 3 Canadians in the LCQ. If you're a Canadian fan listening to this show, now you have some guys to root for, probably some familiar guys if you really follow the Canadian motocross series. Now moving on to the 450 class, and there were 6 privateer slash non-factory racers who qualified for the main event, and 3 of them belonged to a single organization. Of course, no surprise, Quad Lock Honda back in the main event picture, and it was Christian Craig, the highest finishing out of this bunch, 11th place. He started up front around the top 10 in that Cooper Webb, Justin Cooper sort of range. He was with those guys for a long time, lost them a little bit late in the going, but still 11th place. It either matches or bests his best result from last year already. So a positive sign for Craig. And man, he avoided disaster on Friday. Took a wild ride during press day, went sideways on a rhythm, veered to the left, bailed off of his bike, and landed on top of one of the jumps feet first. And I got flashbacks to Aaron Plessinger a few years back at Daytona when he landed on his ankles, broke his heel. I was worried that Christian might have something similar, have some damage to either his ankle or his foot, but he was fine, got back up, rode the second session of press day, and 11th in the main event. Not too bad. His teammate Joey Savacci, 13th. If there was an award for some kind of effort, Joey would have won for sure. He started the main event at the back of the field, went off track early, then he climbs back up to about 13th or 14th, then goes for a wild ride, goes down, back to 19th or 20th, climbs all the way back up to 13th. Not a great result on paper, but he didn't lack any effort, that's for sure. Joey Savacci, I think, can be proud of never giving up. And of course, Savacci and his teammate Shane McElrath, FXR, now sponsoring the Quad Lock Honda team. I heard some rumblings they might have a brand new gear brand, and they do. It's a little bit of a jump scare when I saw FXR on Joey's gear in qualifying, but nonetheless, Joey back in the main event. Speaking of Shane McElrath, I mentioned him there very briefly. Shane was 17th, not a great showing for him. I know Shane was pretty disappointed in his effort, but hey, he made it through, made it into the main event. It's at least something to be proud of. In between Joey and Shane, 14th place on the Team Tedder KTM, Justin Hill back once again. He was in that very cool 4 wide sequence at the start of the second 450 heat himself. Ken Roxon, Chase Sexton, Hunter Lawrence were all 4 wide. Of course, personally, as a NASCAR fan, I'm used to seeing 4 wide on an oval, but not on a supercross track. What a beautiful sequence, and what skill by the 4 men to stay side by side and just keep going there. Justin Hill, 14th, not a crazy good result, but once again, it's a top 15 start to year, something to build on. Then the final 2 privateers in the main event. Guess who's back? Back again. The notorious Vince Freezy is back. He is with the ISRT Kawasaki team this year, who sported title sponsorship for the weekend. They're going to have some of these sponsor packages at different rounds. Big Buildings Direct was the primary sponsor for the ISRT crew. And shout out to Skills, who are the gear suppliers for ISRT. They usually create these custom kits for the team, and they were good looking gear sets. I thought it kind of reminded me of some of the early good looking clean Liette stuff with the blue and orange. But Vince back running the 719 again, of course, the number he first used when he turned pro. Vince was competing in the AMA Arena Cross Championship full time last year. Didn't really compete in Supercross much. I think he only ran 2 or 3 races, but Vince is back. 19th place, not a great main event. Started up front, of course. Vince always has been a good starter. It was a great start for him, and putting the bike in the show, man, he's got to be pretty happy about that. Very competitive field, and for Vince, he's over triple digit main event starts. A lot of people I know aren't huge fans of Vince and some of his antics at times, but you can't deny his talent and his skill level. You don't qualify for as many main events as he has by being a slouch. And then last place, Steve Mathis tweeted about it the other night. When Kawasaki needs a helping hand, who comes through? Money Mitchell Harrison, 20th place. I will admit it's a little weird seeing a number 41 on a Kawasaki. Of course, ever since Trey Kennard retired, the number's been available, but it seems like most years it's still on a Honda. Carson Mumford had it on a Honda. Ben LeMay had it. Hunter Lawrence had it before he started running 96 as his career number. So 41 on a Kawasaki is going to take some time to get used to, but Mitchell took advantage of Garrett Marchbanks taking a spill in the LCQ and put his Partzilla Blaster Power PRMX Kawasaki machine in the main event for the second year in a row at Anaheim 1. Now for news and notes from the 450 class, those who are outside of the main event, and it was Kevin Moran's the first man on the outside. He was the Rocky Mountain ATVMC Privateer Payout Award winner. And man, Kevin has a great setup this year with his KMR Champion Tool Storage KTM team. 2 bikes now. Kind of funny to see Kevin running 78, which Grant Harlan ran a couple years ago. And then Grant is on the team running 62, which Kevin ran in 2024 when he first launched the team. So going to take some time to get used to seeing the 78 and 62 for different guys that they were a couple years ago. But Kevin just outside, a great setup though. The hauler, the atmosphere, very professional look for that team. And Jackson Freeman, Kevin's mechanic, was talking to me a little bit about some sound testing issues. A lot of KTM's having sound testing problems this week. Jorge Prado failed sound check, lost a couple championship points. Justin Hill, I believe, failed sound check, and I think they took away his fastest lap from one of the qualifying sessions. Kevin Moran's also failed sound check a couple times. Jackson was talking to me about it the other day and was a little frustrated. So interesting to see some of these KTMs have some problems. Maybe it's a bike-wide thing, not just a factory team thing. Max Miller on the ISRT Kawasaki machine. Solid run from him. He was only a couple spots shy of the main event in his full-time 450 Supercross debut. He was right there knocking on the door. I could see Max putting it in a couple of these main events later in the year. Sometimes he's a little up and down, but a very positive debut and start to the season. And he was ahead of guys like Harlan, Clayson, Noren all day, which is a great start for Max in his first race. Speaking of Freddie Noren, he's back this year competing for the Gizmo Racing Yamaha team. Still supported by Rock River Power Sports Yamaha, but a little bit of a different ownership group. Mike Duclos and the Rock River team was really running that show. Now it is more of the Gizmo Mods running things with Conrad Eigenmann listed as the team owner now. But great to see Freddie back and aboard a Yamaha. Looking through the list a little bit. Speaking of Yamahas, Tristan Lane, interesting to see him on a Yamaha. Talk to Tristan, always a great guy to talk to, always positive. He was happy with the Yamaha so far. Of course, Tristan Most of his career has been on a KTM, so interesting to see the switch from him. Josh Cartwright back in action this year after taking a year off. He's back on the 519. Roman Pep raced in his first AMA Supercross event. He raced a Paris Supercross in the offseason, but his first AMA race competing aboard his team VHR Yamaha. Speaking of Frenchies, Stefan Rubini. I don't think anybody had Stefan Rubini running the full season on their bingo card, but another one of the Gizmo Yamaha guys. Stefan apparently going to run the full season. He's in. I expect to see him putting together pretty solid races outdoors if he stays healthy. He was a solid 7 to 10 level guy at his peak in MX2 when he competed for Team Honda Motor over in the MXGP series a few years ago. And then you have one of the best names in the sport. Dylan Woodcock was back in America on the Dirt Store Triumph, one of a couple Triumph 450 guys. And Woodcock, the Dirt Store team, will be running full time, or at least all of the European rounds in the MXGP series with Ben Watson on the Triumph. Will be very interesting to see, but good to see Dylan back in America. Of course, he spent a few years over here. And then the Moto Whips crew, they had some really sick looking bikes, both on KTM's, a white look, but very good looking, clean privateer bikes. Dayton Briggs and Anton Nordstrom running for that team. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this first audio edition, full length version of the Unsung Heroes. I am Trey Stire, your host. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for reading as well. I hope you read the article. For those of you who might not be sure where to find this and were listening on the article, you can find this on the Stire Sound podcast pages, whether it is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or my personal YouTube channel, Trey Stire. Thank you once again to Brandon Ray and Crockett Myers for the time today and for sharing about their 250 West openers at Anaheim 1. Thank you for listening, and we will be back next week to wrap up San Diego. Be sure to support all of the privateers of the sport. Be sure to look out for more articles on treystire.wordpress.com and for more race coverage on motocross.com, of course. My main time writing articles now spent with Transworld Motocross. But thank you for following along and supporting TJ Stire 3 on Instagram, Stire 23 on Twitter. I have been Trey Stire, and this has been the Unsung Heroes. Thank you for listening, folks.